Hey there, buddy. The other day a friend of mine came to me and asked, "Hey, last year there was a regime change in Bangladesh. Why has the truth only surfaced now? What on earth is going on?" That really got me thinking and digging deeper into this whole thing. Let's have a chat about it. First off, let's talk about the regime change in Bangladesh in 2024. It was like a big mystery wrapped in an enigma. When it happened, there were so many speculations flying around. We all knew that Bangladesh had its fair share of internal issues, but the question lingered. Were there external forces at play? It was a huge mystery that kept a lot of us guessing. Well, guess what? The truth has finally come out. Recently, Mike Benz, a former diplomat from the US State Department, admitted during an interview on Tucker Carlson's show that the downfall of the Hasina regime was actually orchestrated by the Biden administration. Can you believe that? According to Mike Benz, the conflict between Hasina and the US started during the Obama era. Back then, Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State. The US wanted Bangladesh to allow American troops to be stationed in the Bay of Bengal. Their excuse? Something about dealing with some other power. Let's just leave it at that for now. But Hasina flat out refused, and that's when the US started to plot. The US did some research and found out that the young people in Bangladesh were really into hip-hop. So they decided to use that as a way in. They started funding hip-hop activities and used it to cultivate street opinion leaders. These hip-hop singers then churned out all sorts of anti-Hasina songs. Slowly but surely, a large number of young people got drawn in and started to side with the hip-hop crowd. It's amazing how something like music can be used in such a political way, isn't it? The organization directly in charge of this funding was the International Republican Institute. And guess what? This institute is under the International Democratic Foundation, which is ultimately linked to the US State Department. By 2019, the International Republican Institute had built an underground network in Bangladesh. It included 170 activists and over 300 key people. They were all set, just waiting for the right moment to strike. But here's the thing. For 5 whole years, they didn't do anything. Why? Well, a big part of it was because they had to consider India's feelings. You see, the Hasina regime had a close relationship with India. If they were to overthrow Hasina, it would likely sour the relationship between India and the US. And at that time, the US had this whole "let's work with India" strategy going on. So they didn't want to mess that up. However, things changed in 2024. After the Russia-Ukraine war broke out, the US really needed India to be fully on its side to help deal with Russia and other matters. But India was playing a smart game. On one hand, they were still buying cheap oil from Russia, processing it, and selling it to Europe to make some money. On the other hand, when it came to some of the things the US wanted them to do, they didn't seem to be fully committed. The US's policy towards India had a big problem. They wanted India to cooperate, but they just couldn't offer enough good deals. Especially when it came to things like moving manufacturing industries to India, they just didn't have much to offer. So when the carrot wasn't enough, they decided to use the stick. They started to put pressure on India in terms of geopolitics. Now, let's talk about Bangladesh itself. Hasina had been in power for a long time. The economy in Bangladesh had made some progress, but it wasn't huge. The country still mainly relied on textile exports, which made its economy quite vulnerable in the international market. And then there were issues within her family regarding corruption. As time went by, the dissatisfaction within the country grew. In July 2024, the civil service quota issue flared up. Hasina's handling of it wasn't great. And as soon as that happened, the International Republican Institute quickly mobilized its entire network. In a short period of time, they managed to overthrow the Hasina regime. The new leader who came to power, Yunus, has been much more chummy with the US. Not long ago, Yunus met Alexander, the second son and heir of George Soros. That really caused a stir. A lot of people in India, including the media, believe that the US was behind this. Even Prime Minister Modi was reportedly not happy about Hasina's downfall and has been trying to support her in some way. But for a long time, there was no solid evidence to prove that the Biden administration was involved. And since Bangladesh did have its own internal problems, most people thought that the US might not have had much to do with it. So why has the truth come out now? Well, it's not just a coincidence. Tucker Carlson, who hosted the interview with Mike Benz, is closely associated with Trump. and this definitely wasn't an ordinary interview. One of the main reasons might be related to the US's relationship with India. Trump wants to improve relations with Modi. Modi is set to visit the US soon. So it's a good time to show some goodwill. The big stick part of Trump's approach is that the US has been cracking down on illegal immigration, and Indian immigrants have been treated differently. They've been handcuffed and sent back on planes like criminals. This has caused a huge outcry in India, and many Indian MPs have criticized Modi for being too soft. The carrot part is revealing the truth about the regime change in Bangladesh. By admitting that it was the Biden administration's doing, Trump is kind of saying, hey, that was their mistake, and we won't do that again. Let's work together. Also, the fact that the US Agency for International Development has been cut is good news for India. This agency was heavily involved in the US's aid to Bangladesh. With it gone, Yunus will likely get less aid. But it's not just about India. It also has a lot to do with the situation within the US. During his first term, Trump publicly said that there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. That was a huge deal because it was a direct shot at the establishment, like George W. Bush. In the past, the two parties in the US used to be in a state of fighting but not breaking apart. Usually, they wouldn't expose each other's secrets like that. But now, in Trump's second term, the two parties have really gone their separate ways. The fight between Trump and what's called the deep state has reached a new level. They're not holding back anymore and are constantly exposing each other's skeletons. When it comes to foreign aid, Trump wants to cut back and return to a more isolationist policy. To do that, he needs to show that the Democrats' foreign aid isn't really about helping others, but rather about causing trouble and creating problems. And the situation in Bangladesh is a perfect example for him. He can point to it and say, look, it's the Democrats again. They're using taxpayers' money to meddle in other countries' affairs. Just look at the comments on Tucker Carlson's YouTube video. People are saying things like, the Democrats claim they don't have money to help the hurricane victims in North Carolina, but they have money to send aid to Bangladesh. And I'm so tired of our country interfering in other nations' business. As the fight between Trump and the Democrats continues to heat up, I'm sure we're going to see more secrets being revealed. There are probably a lot of things that we thought were just normal occurrences, but actually have a hidden political agenda behind them. It's really eye-opening to see how politics works on such a global scale. Who would have thought that something as seemingly simple as a regime change in a far-off country like Bangladesh could be so intricately linked to its domestic politics and international relations? It makes you realize that there's a lot more going on beneath the surface than we usually see. I remember when I first heard about the regime change in Bangladesh, I didn't think much of it. I just assumed it was an internal matter. But now, knowing all these details, it's a whole different story. It makes you wonder what other secrets are out there that we still don't know about. Take the role of these organizations, like the International Republican Institute and the International Democratic Foundation. They seem to be operating in the shadows, influencing events in other countries. And it's not just about Bangladesh. There could be other places where they're doing similar things. And then there's the role of the media. Tucker Carlson's show played a crucial part in bringing this story to light. It makes you think about how the media can be used as a tool in political battles. One side uses it to expose the other side's wrongdoings, and it can have a huge impact on public opinion. Another aspect is how the US's relationship with other countries can be so easily swayed by political decisions. The whole carrot and stick approach with India shows how delicate these international relations are. The US wants India's cooperation, but at the same time, they're not always willing to give up much in return. It also makes you question the true motives behind foreign aid. Is it really about helping other countries develop, or is it often used as a political tool? In the case of Bangladesh, it seems like the aid was used to try and influence the political situation. Looking back at history, there have been so many instances where the US has been involved in other countries' affairs. From the Vietnam War to the situation in Iraq, and now this in Bangladesh. It makes you wonder if the US is really making the right decisions when it comes to interfering in other nations. And what about the future? Now that the truth about Bangladesh has come out, how will it affect the relationship between the US, Bangladesh, and India? Will it lead to any changes in US foreign policy? Will other countries be more cautious when dealing with the US? knowing that they might be the next target for political interference? There's so many questions, and it's hard to say what the answers would be. But one thing is for sure, this whole situation in Bangladesh has opened our eyes to the complex world of international politics and the hidden agendas that often lie beneath the surface. I'm really interested to see what you think about all this. Do you have any thoughts or ideas? Maybe you've noticed some other aspects that I haven't mentioned. Let's keep this conversation going and try to understand this whole thing better. After all, it's not every day that we get to uncover a story like this. And it's important for us, as ordinary citizens, to be aware of what's going on in the world around us, especially when it comes to the actions of our own government. So, what do you think? Let's hear your take on this.